Yesterday's hearing from the House Oversight and Accountability Committee brought to light continued revelations of federal collusion and interference with the social media giant Twitter. Now, as we've talked about before, I don't think it's isolated to Twitter. You know, viewers and listeners of this program may remember that the state attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri filed a recent lawsuit against the federal government alleging that the suppression of disfavored voices on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter platforms violates the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Now, this came up yesterday in the hearing that, you know, a private entity can restrict what they have on their platform and the speech that takes place. But federal government, if they reach in and say, hey, I want you to silence those people over there, take them off, that becomes a First Amendment violation. Now, what I want to do is kind of compare what the attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri kind of discovered, and they're still in this process of discovery. Their lawsuit continues, kind of looking to see if it squares with the testimony yesterday from the former Twitter executives. Joining me now to discuss this is the Louisiana Solicitor General, Liz Murrill. Liz, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks. It's great to be with you, Tony.
Now, we had the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, on the program discussing this topic last month. Give us first, before we go into yesterday, the update on the status of your lawsuit and who you are targeting in that lawsuit.
Well, our lawsuit was filed against the federal government, and we've amended those pleadings since this lawsuit began to add more parties, add more agencies, and conduct discovery regarding more individuals' participation in this scheme. You know, I think what's been really revealing is in the process of discovery, which is, you know, for non-lawyers, it's a procedure in which we can go through under the court supervision where the plaintiffs have to provide us with information. And third parties also sometimes have to provide us with information when we send them subpoenas. And that's what really created this whole thing, because we were able to get information from Twitter and Facebook that revealed a widespread, coordinated conspiracy led by them and pushed by the federal government to censor people's speech.
You know, they were, you know, I didn't watch every moment of yesterday's hearing, listening to the testimony, but I listened to a lot of it. And, you know, essentially was saying, well, the federal government didn't force us or didn't tell us to do this. I'm just wondering if what you are discovering in this process is going to, well, it's going to reveal that some people weren't telling the truth.
Well, I think it does. I think most of all, it reveals to the people that we are telling the truth, that this conspiracy existed. I think the most important thing to come out of these hearings is to shed some daylight on how vast it was, how easy it was for the government and large corporations who control these tech platforms to collaborate and coordinate with the federal government in order to censor speech. In some cases, that was being identified straight from the White House as speech that they didn't like and that they wanted to see changed. We still have a lot of work to do to continue to investigate in this case, but so far it has certainly been enough to justify these oversight hearings, and I think that that's been a very welcome outcome of the last round of elections.
So, Solicitor General Murrill, let me ask you this question. Based upon the discovery and the information that you have, do you feel pretty confident that there was collusion with the federal government and the social media platforms to silence and to squelch the voice of conservatives?
Well, absolutely. I think that's what the documents reveal. They show back and forth conversations about sometimes very specific posts. They reveal an entire portal that was created to facilitate easier and faster movement by the platforms to identify speech. It goes well beyond COVID. We've also identified discussions that would involve clearly protected speech under the First Amendment. And that really ought to frighten everyone in terms of the ease with which the federal government obtained cooperation from corporations to censor protected speech, and then created a massive mechanism feeding right from the federal government in which to drive the speech that they wanted censored. It's very frightening.
I'm not asking for legal advice here, but what measures when all this is said and done and your information comes out and we see Congress in these hearings, providing information, getting information that validates all of this, and we have all this information out here and it looks very clear that there are many Americans whose First Amendment rights were violated, will they have any legal recourse?
I think individuals would be able to seek, they might be able to file some actions against the federal government. That's a complicated process, and it's a long process. Sometimes the wheels of government, especially the wheels of justice in the courts, can move very slowly. I think at the end of the day, we need Congress to act to make sure this kind of thing can never happen again. And that's part of Congress's job in overseeing these agencies. It should never have gone this far.
Mm-hmm.
It should never have been able to happen, as that the American public would be targeted this way for disfavored speech. And I think that at the end of the day, Congress needs to look at this very closely and see what they can do to make sure that their own agencies are held accountable and restricted so that this can't happen again.
Well, Solicitor General Murrill, I want to thank you for the work that you and the Attorney General there in Louisiana, my good friend Jeff Landry, have been doing on this, because if it weren't for the state attorneys general, this information wouldn't be coming forth. So thank you. We look forward to talking to you as this discovery process continues, as we find out more information.
Thank you. We will keep working on it.
All right.